Hello everyone. Welcome back and thanks for joining us today. We have a brand new story to share with you, so let's get started. My name is Isabel. I'm 48 years old, and most days, I live quietly, like a whisper that never quite turns into a sound. After my divorce 5 years ago, I traded the chaos of Detroit for this sleepy lakeside town in northern Michigan. People here wave but don't linger. They smile but rarely ask questions. It suits me. I work from home as a freelance editor, mainly historical fiction, which is fitting, because sometimes I feel like I live in a story that ended a long time ago, and no one remembered to write the final chapter. It was a Tuesday evening, one of those dusky hours when the world seems to exhale. I had just lit a candle in the living room, the scent of sandalwood curling into the air. The wind had picked up outside, sharp and impatient, rapping at the windows like it was asking to come in. I had my hands wrapped around a mug of too cold tea when it happened. A knock at the door. Not loud, not hurried, just unexpected. I froze. No one ever knocked on my door at night. The last time someone had, it was my ex-husband with a box of letters and a look in his eyes I couldn't read. That was years ago. Since then, my door remained mostly decorative. I set the mug down and crept toward it. My heart beat louder than the wind now. Through the narrow sidelight window, I saw him, Noah, the man who moved in next door about 2 weeks ago. Late 40s, maybe early 50s, tall, with deep-set eyes and a jaw that always looked like it was holding back something unspoken. We'd only waved a few times. He seemed kind, polite, but reserved. Still, something about him had always caught my attention, though I couldn't say why. I opened the door cautiously. He stood there, soaked to the bone, his jacket clinging to his frame, hair matted against his forehead from the rain. "I'm so sorry to bother you," he said, voice low, rough. My power just went out. Phone's dead. My roof started leaking. I saw your light, and I didn't know where else to go. He looked more like a man on the edge of something than a neighbor needing a flashlight. Behind him, the wind howled, flinging water sideways. I hesitated, only for a second, before stepping aside. "Come in," I said softly. He did, dripping, quiet, like someone used to apologizing for taking up space. I handed him a towel. He took it with both hands. Like it was more than just cotton, like it was grace. I didn't know what I was inviting in that night, only that something in his eyes looked achingly familiar. And for the first time in a long while, I felt the unmistakable flicker of something I couldn't name. Not yet. But I knew the story was just beginning. The storm raged louder outside. But inside, a strange calm settled between us. Noah sat on the edge of my couch, wrapped in the towel I had given him, his clothes damp and clinging to him like memories he hadn't let go of. I offered him tea, the same lukewarm blend I'd abandoned earlier, and he accepted it with a quiet nod. His hands trembled slightly as he took the mug, though whether from the cold or something else entirely, I couldn't tell. "I didn't mean to barge in," he said after a long pause, his voice barely louder than the crackle of the candle flame between us. "I just didn't know where else to go." "You're not intruding," I replied gently, watching the way his gaze kept darting to the window, as if expecting someone, to appear from the storm. "You seemed like you needed a place to land." He looked at me then, really looked, and in that moment, something shifted. His eyes, gray and storm-laced like the weather outside, carried a grief so deep I could almost feel it in my own chest. "I haven't stepped inside someone else's home in a very long time," he confessed. "Not since my wife passed." The words hit me like a current, sudden and electric. I hadn't known. No one in the neighborhood really knew anything about Noah. He'd arrived quietly, moved into the blue-shuttered house with no fanfare, and hadn't offered more than a few nods and smiles since. But now, here he was, unraveling. "She died almost 2 years ago," he said, voice catching. "Cancer. Fast and cruel. We thought we had more time. But then, we didn't." He stared into the steam of his tea like it might carry her image back to him. "After she was gone, I couldn't stay in the house we built together. It started feeling like a shrine. So I packed up and came here. Thought maybe the quiet would help. But the silence? It just makes her absence louder." I said nothing. What could I say to grief like that? I just listened, heart cracking open without permission. Because I knew that kind of emptiness. Mine didn't come from death, but from the slow, silent unraveling of a love that simply ceased to be. And still, it left a hole all the same. Noah looked at me again. And this time, there was something raw in his expression. I know I sound crazy. Showing up like this. Telling you all this. You don't, I said softly. You sound like someone trying not to drown. He blinked. And for the first time, a flicker of something vulnerable passed over his face, relief. Maybe, gratitude, or simply the fragile realization that he wasn't alone in the storm. Not anymore. Outside, thunder growled in the distance. But here, in this moment, a new kind of storm had begun. One not of wind or rain, but of truth, of memory. And of two lives quietly beginning to collide. The rain softened by midnight. But neither of us had moved. The candle between us had burned halfway down, casting long shadows across the walls. Noah sat quietly, his gaze fixed on the flickering flame like it held the answers he'd been searching for. I hadn't intended to let the night stretch like this. But something about him, his presence, his vulnerability, had rooted me to that space. I didn't want to disturb it. Or maybe I was afraid of what would happen if I did. Noah, I finally said, is that the real reason you came over tonight? He looked up, startled. For a moment he didn't respond. And I wasn't sure he would. Then, after a long silence, he nodded slowly. Yes, and no. My breath caught. There's something else, he admitted, setting his mug down carefully on the table. Something I haven't told anyone. Not since it happened. He leaned back against the couch, his shoulders visibly tense. I don't know why, but I think I need to tell you. I waited, my pulse thudding softly in my ears. It wasn't just grief that brought me here. He continued. It was fear. After Mia died, strange things started happening. At first, I thought I was imagining them. A light left on that I swore I'd turned off. Drawers opened. One night, I came home and found the photo of our wedding lying face down on the floor. The frame wasn't broken. It had been placed there. Deliberately. I leaned in unconsciously. Did someone break in? No, nothing was taken. No signs of forced entry. Just little things, but they kept happening. Notes, messages, words carved into the frost on my car windshield. What kind of words? He looked me in the eye, and I saw the torment behind his calm. Words she used to say to me. Private things, things no one else would know. A chill ran through me. I thought I was losing my mind. I went to the police once. They chalked it up to grief and trauma. Said I needed rest, therapy, but I know what I saw. Noah, I whispered, unsure what I was even trying to say. My heart pounded. Do you think someone's following you? He shook his head, slowly. No, I think someone's trying to haunt me. Not in a ghost story kind of way. In a calculated, personal way, like someone wants me to believe I'm not safe. The room felt colder. The wind tapped gently against the window pane, as if echoing his fear. I wanted to reach for his hand but held back, unsure of the boundaries still between us. And tonight, he added quietly, right before I came over, I found another note, taped to my mirror. I stared at him. What did it say? His voice dropped to a whisper. She remembers. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The room, the quiet, the storm outside, it all faded beneath the weight of that confession. This wasn't just grief anymore. It was something else, something darker, and I was already in it. Deeper than I realized. After Noah whispered those words, she remembers, a silence fell between us. More deafening than any thunderstorm. I felt it in my chest like a weight, pressing into my ribs. My mind raced. Was it a threat? A message from someone pretending to be Mia? Or could it be something far more sinister? I wanted to believe it was just grief. Some twisted way Noah's mind was unraveling under sorrow, but I saw it in his eyes. This wasn't delusion. This was real, at least to him. Where was it taped? I asked carefully, unsure I wanted to know the answer. He swallowed. My bathroom mirror, just above the sink. Same handwriting as the other notes. I locked every door, every window. I even checked the security cam outside. But the feed cut out for 3 minutes. Just 3. Then it came back on. My blood chilled. So whoever it is, knew the cameras. He nodded. Which is why I came here. It wasn't just because of the storm. I didn't want to be alone tonight. His vulnerability cut through me sharper than fear. This wasn't just about a broken-hearted widower. This was about survival, about safety, and something else, something deeper. I believe you, I said softly, and I meant it. Maybe that was the moment everything truly shifted. Because his shoulders sagged in relief. Like those 3 words gave him permission to stop pretending to be okay. I stood and moved to the kitchen, pretending I needed more tea. But really, I just needed to steady myself. My hands trembled slightly as I poured the water. What if someone was watching us right now? I pushed the thought away. But it clung like fog. Noah, I said from across the room. What did Mia used to say? The words from the note. She remembers. Is that something she used to say? He looked haunted. Yes, it was our phrase. Anytime I forgot something, anniversaries, appointments, she'd smile and say, "It's okay." She remembers. It became a joke between us. He looked up, eyes wet but sharp. Only she and I ever knew that. I felt my breath catch. Then whoever wrote that note knows you. Knows her. Noah nodded. Which is why I'm scared it's not over. That maybe Mia's death wasn't. He stopped. Wasn't what? I pressed. He took a deep breath. Natural. Or accidental. My heart dropped. You think someone? I don't know, he whispered, his voice cracking, but I've started questioning everything. I crossed the room and sat beside him. Noah, if someone's trying to drive you mad, they're doing a damn good job of it. But you're not crazy. You're grieving. And maybe, just maybe, you're also being hunted. He looked at me then. Really looked. And I saw the flicker of fear shift to something else, trust. Connection. It pulsed between us like an invisible thread. We'll figure it out, I promised. Together. And in that moment, I didn't just mean it. I needed it to be true. The next morning, I woke before sunrise, the eerie stillness of my house pressing in like a second skin. Noah had fallen asleep on the couch. The fire now embers, a blanket draped over him like he'd been there for years. I stood in the kitchen, cradling a cup of coffee I barely tasted, my eyes fixed on him. There was something in the way he slept, like a man haunted even in dreams. I knew then this wasn't just about grief. It was about truth clawing its way to the surface. Desperate to be heard, my phone buzzed on the counter. An unknown number. My stomach tightened. Against my better judgment, I answered. Isabel? A woman's voice. Calm, measured, but with an edge so sharp it made me shiver. Yes. Who is this? You don't know me, but I knew Mia. Silence. I gripped the counter. What do you mean? I need to see you. Alone. There are things you don't know. Things Noah can't tell you. Why not? Because he doesn't remember. Click. The line went dead. I stood frozen, heart pounding. What did she mean? He doesn't remember? Who was she? And why now? I turned to find Noah standing in the doorway. His face pale, eyes alert. Who was that? He asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I was still reeling. Someone who says she knew Mia. She wants to meet. His jaw tightened. That doesn't make sense. Mia didn't have many close friends. Especially ones who'd still be around now. She said there are things you can't tell me. Because you don't remember. The words hit him like a punch. I watched the color drain from his face. That's not possible. But I saw the hesitation in his eyes. The flicker of doubt. Is there something you're not telling me? I asked gently. He sat down slowly at the kitchen table. Head in his hands. After Mia died, I had a breakdown. I was in the hospital for weeks. I don't talk about it. I barely remember it myself. There are gaps. Blackouts. I thought it was just trauma. But now. He looked up at me. Anguish etched into every line of his face. Now I don't know what's real anymore. I sat across from him. My hands trembling. Noah, what if someone's trying to manipulate those gaps? To make you doubt yourself? What if they're trying to make me doubt you? He was silent for a long time. Then, what if they're right? The vulnerability in his voice shattered me. We need to meet her, I said, voice steady despite the fear curling in my gut. I'll go. Alone. Just like she asked. No, he said sharply. It could be a trap. Then it's one we'll walk into together. Carefully, eyes wide open. He nodded slowly, and in his eyes I saw something raw. Something rare. Hope. Or maybe just the fragile beginning of it. And so, the mystery deepened, not just of Mia, but of Noah himself, of what was forgotten, and what might be remembered. We met her the next day, just after dusk, in a quiet park on the edge of town where the trees stood like sentinels and the street lamps flickered faintly against the creeping night. She waited on a bench near the far side, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked to be in her late 40s, with tired eyes and a presence that felt both calm and unnervingly sharp. "I'm Claire," she said as we approached, her eyes flicking briefly to Noah before resting on me. "Mia's half-sister." I froze. Noah turned to me, stunned. "She never told me she had a sister." "She wouldn't," Claire said quietly. "Not after what happened." We sat, the silence brittle between us. I could feel Noah's pulse through the bench, as if his entire body was bracing for impact. Claire reached into her coat and pulled out a small photo, faded, frayed edges. It showed two girls, one clearly Mia, the other unmistakably her, Claire. Maybe 16, with the same haunted eyes. "She changed her name when she moved here," Claire said. "She left everything behind, including me." "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Claire hesitated, then met Noah's gaze directly. "Because of you." Noah flinched. "Me? You loved her," Claire said carefully, "but you also scared her." I stared at her. "No, that doesn't make sense. Noah would never." "She wasn't afraid of him," Claire said softly. "She was afraid of what he was becoming. After the accident." "What accident?" I asked, confused. Claire looked down at her hands. "A year before she died. Noah was in a car crash. He hit his head. He was unconscious for 2 days. After that, he changed." I turned to Noah. "You never told me that." "I barely remember it," he admitted, his voice hollow. "The doctors said it might cause memory loss. But I never thought." Claire leaned forward. She came to me crying. "Said he would wake up in the middle of the night and scream. That he'd say strange things. Accuse her of cheating. Then apologize like he didn't remember. She thought he was losing pieces of himself. She didn't know how to help him." Tears welled in Noah's eyes. "I loved her. I never meant to hurt her." "I believe you," Claire said, "but something was happening to you. And she didn't feel safe enough to stay." The pieces began to fall into place in my mind like dominoes. The forgotten weeks, the emotional distance, the breakdown. It wasn't just grief that had fractured Noah. It was guilt, and maybe something even deeper, something neurological, something he couldn't control. I reached for his hand. He gripped it like a lifeline. "I'm not here to blame you," Claire said gently. "I'm here because I found Mia's journal after she passed. There are entries, things she never told anyone. And there's one thing you both need to know." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. "This changes everything." And just like that, the ground beneath us began to shift. Again, Claire placed the journal on the table between us as though it were something sacred, or dangerous. The soft leather cover was frayed at the edges, the corners darkened by age and use. For a moment, none of us spoke. The wind rustled through the trees. And somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, sharp, sudden, as if to jolt us back into the gravity of the moment. Noah's hands hovered over the book but didn't touch it. "Are you sure I should read this?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Claire nodded solemnly. "She wrote it for herself, but I think a part of her hoped you'd find it one day. Maybe not then, but someday." Noah opened the cover with trembling fingers. I watched his eyes scan the first few lines. His breath hitched. Then he turned to a dog-eared page. One Claire must have marked beforehand. His lips moved as he read silently. And then, aloud, "He's not the same anymore. His eyes don't see me like they used to. Sometimes I think he's looking through me. And when I ask him what's wrong, he doesn't remember the things he said the night before." He closed the book abruptly, his hands shaking. "She thought I was losing my mind. She thought you were losing yourself," Claire said gently, "and it broke her heart." Noah stood up suddenly, pacing, his fingers tangled in his hair. "Why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she help me?" "She tried," Claire replied quietly. "You pushed her away without realizing it. One day she called me, sobbing, said you accused her of being with someone else. That you locked yourself in the bathroom and didn't come out for hours." I reached for his arm, grounding him. "Noah, this wasn't your fault. If you had a head injury, you might have had undiagnosed trauma. You weren't in control." He turned to me, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, raw. Unfiltered fear. But what if I was? What if a part of me wanted to push her away? The silence after that was deafening. Claire finally stood. There's more in that journal. Memories, doubts, but also love. A lot of love. She never stopped loving you, Noah. She just didn't know how to love someone who didn't know how to stay. That line hit like a thunderclap. She never stopped loving you. We sat in silence after she left. The journal between us like a sleeping secret not yet fully woken. Noah didn't speak. He just sat staring at his hands as if he no longer recognized them. Later that night, I read the rest of the journal aloud to him, page by heartbreaking page. And when I reached the final entry, written in hurried, scrawled ink, I felt a chill I couldn't explain. If something happens to me, I need someone to know. There are things I've kept hidden, not just from Noah, but from everyone. I think someone's watching me. I think I've made a mistake I can't undo. We stared at each other in horror. Mia hadn't just left because of love. She had been afraid. Of what? Or, of who? The words from Mia's final journal entry echoed in the air long after I stopped reading. I think someone's watching me. I think I've made a mistake I can't undo. Noah sat rigid on the couch, his hands gripping the sides of the cushion, knuckles white. I could feel the tension vibrating off him like static, as if the entire room had shifted into a different dimension, one where love and grief now made space for fear. What mistake? I asked aloud, though I knew neither of us had the answer. Noah stood suddenly. I have to go to the garage. His voice was tight, urgent. I followed him without hesitation. He moved fast, unlocking the old cabinet in the corner with a key I hadn't seen him use before. Dust floated in the air as he pulled out a shoebox, worn, taped shut on one side. She made me promise never to open this unless something happened to her, he said, barely above a whisper. I forgot about it, or maybe I forced myself to. My breath caught as he peeled back the lid. Inside were faded photographs, a small cassette tape labeled April 18th, and a folded letter. He handed me the letter first, his hands trembling. I opened it. Noah, if you're reading this, then I was right to be afraid. I can't explain everything, not yet. There are things I've uncovered, things about Richard. He's not who he says he is. Please, don't trust him. Be careful. And whatever you do, don't let him know you know. Richard? I said slowly. As in, your therapist? Noah's face went pale. Yes, the one who helped me when I got out of the hospital. My heart lurched. But Claire said Mia trusted him. That he supported her while you were recovering. She thought she trusted him. Noah said, voice strained. She must have found out something later. Something she couldn't tell me directly. I looked down at the tape in the box. We need to hear this. We found Noah's old tape player in a drawer. Miraculously still working. The tape clicked into place. Static at first, then Mia's voice, fragile, trembling, recorded in secret. If anything happens to me, it's because I got too close to the truth. Richard's been manipulating Noah. I think he was trying to control his memory. Maybe even sabotage his recovery. There are things I've seen, receipts, prescriptions that don't add up. He's been lying to both of us. I don't know what he wants. But it's not to help. I froze. My stomach turned to ice. Noah covered his mouth with his hand. Eyes wide, horrified. How could I not have known? He whispered. You were vulnerable, I said softly. He used that. The tape hissed again. Mia's last words barely audible. If I disappear, please don't believe it was an accident. The room went still. Noah turned to me, voice cracking. Do you think she's dead? I didn't answer. Because now, for the first time, I wasn't sure. Not about Mia, not about Richard, and definitely not about how far someone would go to keep a secret buried. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, especially when it was never truly laid to rest. In unraveling Mia's final warnings, Claire and Noah discovered that healing isn't just about grief or memory, it's about truth. The people we trust most can hide the darkest secrets. And sometimes the greatest danger comes disguised as help. This story reminds us that love and loss are often tangled with layers we may never fully understand. But courage? Courage is choosing to face those truths anyway. If this chapter moved you, if it stirred something deep within your own story, we'd love to hear from you. What would you have done in Claire's shoes? Do you think Mia's gone, or could there still be more to uncover? Don't forget to like this video if you felt the suspense. Leave a comment with your thoughts and theories. And subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Reddit so you never miss a twist in stories like this. The next part of Claire and Noah's journey is coming, and trust me, the truth is only beginning to surface. Sometimes, what we think is closure is just the start of something far more dangerous. Stay with us. You won't want to miss what happens next.